There is a quiet, exhausting tragedy that millions of believers live with every single day, but almost no one talks about it openly. It goes like this. You recognize a destructive pattern in your life, a financial block, a relational cycle, a deep, lingering anxiety. You get tired of it. You pray for change. You cry out for a breakthrough. For a few days, you feel completely different. You feel free. You feel motivated. You feel like the chains are finally broken. But then, slowly, invisibly, the gravity of your old life returns. A few weeks later, you look around, and you are right back where you started. The same fears, the same reactions, the same invisible ceiling, the exact same reality, just wearing a different mask. And a dark, quiet thought begins to form in the back of your mind. Why does this always happen to me? Am I cursed? Is God ignoring my prayers? The answer to all of those questions is no. You are not cursed, and heaven is not ignoring you. You are simply misunderstanding the fundamental mechanism of how human reality is shaped. Most people believe that reality responds to what they want. They think that if they desire something intensely enough, or pray for it loudly enough, the universe or God must immediately alter their circumstances. But the universe does not work that way. Reality does not bow to intensity. It bows to continuity. Reality reinforces what you repeatedly stabilize. And until you understand the terrifying difference between an emotional peak and a stabilized pattern, you will spend your entire life fighting the exact same battles. To understand why certain patterns keep choosing you, we have to look at the physical architecture of your brain. In 1949, a neuropsychologist named Donald Hebb formulated a rule that would change our understanding of the human mind forever. It is often summarized in a single famous phrase: neurons that fire together, wire together. This is the foundation of neuroplasticity. Every time you think a thought, feel an emotion, or react to a situation, a specific neural pathway lights up in your brain. If you do it once, it is like walking through a dense jungle. The path is barely visible. But if you repeat that reaction, if you rehearse that fear, if you mentally revisit that anxiety day after day, you are paving a superhighway in your brain. Your nervous system is incredibly efficient. It does not care if a thought is good for you or bad for you. It only cares about what is familiar. If you spend 10 years stabilizing the feeling of unworthiness, your brain physically adapts to make unworthiness your default state of existence. And this leads to a mechanism known in neuroscience as predictive processing. Your brain is not a camera that simply records the world. It is a prediction engine. Because the world is too complex to process every second, your brain constantly guesses what is going to happen next, based entirely on your past stabilized patterns. If your internal structure is built on the expectation of betrayal, your brain will literally filter your visual and auditory perception to find evidence of betrayal in the room. If your internal structure is stabilized in fear, you will perceive a neutral email as a threat. You will interpret a quiet spouse as an angry spouse. You do not merely see the world as it is, you see the world as you are, which means you are not just repeating patterns. Because of your stabilized internal structure, patterns are repeating you. This is the brutal mechanical truth of human existence. A repeated state becomes a reinforced world. If you spend 23 hours a day internally rehearsing worst-case scenarios and then pray for 1 hour asking God for peace, you're asking the environment to respond to an intensity that your internal structure cannot sustain. The system will always default to the pattern you have stabilized. 2,000 years ago, Jesus taught this exact principle, but the modern world has buried his mechanical precision under layers of religious sentimentality. We treat faith as if it were a magical wishing well, a momentary spike of intense belief designed to force God to do our bidding. But listen to the language Jesus actually used. Again and again, he said, "According to your faith, be it unto you." He did not say, "According to your momentary desire." He did not say, "According to how loud you cried at the altar." Faith, in the way Jesus described it, is not a fleeting emotion. It is a stabilized internal structure. It is the lens through which your nervous system has been trained to predict reality. Jesus also stated a profound law of spiritual physics that sounds almost unfair to the modern ear. He said, "For whoever has, to him more will be given, and he will have an abundance. But whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him." Secular science calls this the Matthew effect. It is the law of accumulated advantage. But look at it mechanically. Reality is an amplifier. It amplifies what is already established. If you have stabilized a frequency of lack, fear, and powerlessness, reality will continually strip away opportunities because your system is not structured to perceive or sustain them. But if you have stabilized an internal structure of coherence, authority, and peace, reality will begin to organize itself around that signal, bringing more of it into your lived experience. The environment reinforces the dominant signal. This is why temporary motivation never changes a life. You go to a conference, you watch a powerful video, you feel a massive spike of dopamine and inspiration. For 3 days, you are a different person. But an emotional spike is an anomaly. It is not a baseline, and reality does not anchor to anomalies. It anchors to the baseline. When the emotion fades, the nervous system reverts to its most familiar superhighway, and the old reality reconstructs itself. This is the hidden sabotage of modern spirituality. People are addicted to breakthroughs. They want the earthquake. They want the fire. They want the dramatic instant deliverance. But they ignore the daily, boring, microscopic discipline of stabilization. Jesus understood this perfectly. Before his death, he did not tell his disciples to seek emotional highs. He gave them a single mechanical instruction. In John chapter 15, he said, "Abide in me. Remain, stay, dwell. Not visit me when you are in crisis. Not spike your emotion on Sunday. Abide." Because Jesus knew the physics of the human soul. He knew that you only bear the fruit of the environment you remain in. You cannot abide in chronic anxiety or weak. Visit the frequency of peace for 10 minutes and expect your life to transform. Transformation is not an event. It is the painful, disciplined process of starving old neural pathways and abiding in a new coherence until it becomes your default biological and spiritual state. So how do you actually break a deeply stabilized pattern? How do you stop the cycle from finding you again? You have to change the signal you are broadcasting. And that requires 3 highly uncomfortable shifts. First, you must stop identifying with the pattern. Stop calling it my anxiety, my bad luck, or my generational curse. When you claim ownership of a pattern, you tell your nervous system that this is who you are. And your identity is not hidden. It is broadcasting. The moment you defend your limitations, you stabilize them. Second, you must learn to tolerate the discomfort of a new baseline. When you first start operating in peace, your brain will panic. It will feel wrong. It will feel unsafe. Because to a nervous system addicted to chaos, peace feels like a loss of control. You have to endure the withdrawal symptoms of your old identity without reacting. You have to hold the new structure until the brain realizes it is safe. Third, you must shift your focus from intensity to continuity. Stop trying to fix your entire life in one weekend of intense prayer or aggressive planning. Instead, ask yourself, what can I stabilize today? Can I stabilize my attention for 10 minutes? Can I stabilize my emotional reaction when someone insults me? Can I stabilize my breathing when the email arrives? Small, coherent actions repeated relentlessly, will eventually rewrite the architecture of your brain. Because reality reinforces what you repeatedly stabilize. And once the architecture changes, the outward reality has no choice but to follow. Because reality is a mirror and not a master. It is waiting to see what you will establish. It is waiting to see what you will refuse to surrender. Stop praying for the storm to magically disappear while you continue to stabilize the frequency of fear. Build a new center, hold it, abide in it. Because in the end, the invisible law remains absolute. What you rehearse becomes what reality expects from you, and what you remain in eventually remains around you. Welcome back to the Mechanics of Faith.